Susan Brazer. Susan is CEO of Lionshare Media, creators of augmented reality and immersive mobile apps. Previously, she has held positions in biz dev and product strategy at Nokia, Virgin Mobile, Apple, and others.
Wow, and others. The others is the thing. All right, listen, I am delighted to be here with everybody. It is totally inspired to be at this moment in time with AR. I just got into it about 6 months ago because I've been deeply immersed in mobile for the past decade and working on the consumer electronics devices that are up and coming. So coming from the mobile out and the sensor area, and actually I have to confess that I've been part of the mobile scene for, I guess, the better part of a quarter of a century. I started at Apple and I launched Knowledge Navigator, and people have heard of the Newton, so I was on the dream team for the Newton. So I've actually been thinking about the user experience of using tablets for a very long time. And so the magic that we're about to create in this room and beyond is like the next journey, actually. And avatars were something that we dreamed of a long time ago in the form of what you'd call a personal digital assistant. So if you've never seen the Knowledge Navigator, I encourage you to drop into YouTube and take a look at that, because even today, a lot of the features and functions that we envisioned that many years ago are still not current. So I want to use that as a preface, because in the room, in the past few hours, yesterday, we had a lot of discussions about the timing of when AR really takes flight. And I think that there's this whole healthy sort of vortex of imagining what's possible, and particularly as that intersects with the imagination of people who do games and that next generation. The other side of it is the user experience. One of the things that everybody echoes about Steve Jobs in terms of his zeitgeist about creating new products is that he actually stuck to what he really thought would be the next product, not necessarily asking everybody what they thought, but really kind of consolidating what he imagined against what was possible given the converging and the emerging media roadmap in terms of technologies and integrating technologies. He was a big assembler to kind of create his vision. And so I embrace that. I want to work with all of the developers, not maybe all of them, but I do handpick all over the planet. I have a number of developers I'm working with who are developing different platforms, and I'm really excited about some of the things that Qualcomm and Metaio are doing as well. So we're just at the starting gate, but I want to just say that I also have spent a lot of my time in premium content, which makes most of the money. So I have a commercial view of this type of technology, and I think that my role here hopefully will be to champion the notion of how do you commercialize. I think the idea of art for art's sake and disruption, I just love these type of projects. I think we're doing some of them, but I'm always in a lean back position on how do you commercialize it. Not overly Disneyfication, I thought that was an interesting term, but actually to delight and to engage people. So I think that's where it is. And I think what we are focused on as real estate as a premium piece of content today, I do deal with immersive mobile media publishing. We're doing a lot of innovative work here, but the focus of my conversation is about the relationship with experiencing iconic architecture and real estate visualization, and kind of focusing on the immersive engagement. We are definitely looking at both the time-elastic dynamic lens that AR enables, so to look at the historical as well as the future, and that's where we're kind of moving. So as I said, what's inside those tablets and smartphones, there's a whole roadmap that's coming out, particularly as we move into 4G, a lot more video, a lot more sensor. On the back end, you've got a lot more big data and consumer engagement analytics. You've got the advanced cameras, the sensors both in the phone, outside the phone. You know, there's just an enormous amount, and the cloud services just offload for the network for speed. Everybody's concerned with latency and coverage. And I think the whole ecosystem of the wireless carriers and the technologists and the CE devices, it all has to kind of marry together. So there is no simple, whether it's a killer application, there are going to be enormous challenges to expediting innovation. But I think the market is at a tipping point, particularly for mobile, so we're focused on that. Now, this is not a slide that most people don't understand in this room, but we usually use it. But there's a reason I'm going to just show it really quickly. It's a group that couldn't be here, and we're working with them out of We have no audio. We can have audio. It's a group out of Germany called Do Panic. They created a product called ViewFrame. Nothing here too novel for you folks, but what's interesting is to actually design from a CAD CAM design and set it in its actual site-in setting. And what it does for other types of developers, the big real estate developers have long-term projects they have to visualize and sell to their financiers, to the civic organizations. And so all of these pieces, no matter how they're done, and there's a lot of folks in the room doing this, I think it's really, the question is, how are the developers going to start to embrace these tools? Are they going to be cost effective enough? Can they have the assets to integrate into their portfolio of presentation? And we've done a lot of work over the past, 4 months, which I wouldn't say is a lifetime. But I have had the opportunity to meet with very senior people in a lot of the developers community, and what we've kind of understood is they're laggards with technology. I mean, they were late to the dance on internet. They're going to be late in general. But the thing is, what gets to these guys is that they have to figure out how to sell their projects and get buyers, whether it's like commercial real estate or residential real estate. They've got to sell about 40% of their units before they break ground. And the problem is that somebody who's in Miami who's looking at a new residential property, an iconic residential property, doesn't have a sense for its location. When you take a look at it on a simple rendering, it looks fabulous. But the issue is, how can you experience that? And even, both inside and outside. And, so there's a tendency for folks who are particularly international to, there's a big ecosystem in those markets to sell to people who are remote. So the mobile aspect of being able to showcase something, go to a website, if you can actually take the gesture effects and create a more engaging experience on a mobile app, that's one step forward. And obviously the distribution costs and the tracking to see if they've done it is another. But I think the idea of giving somebody a tour of a property and get them up to speed is one thing. They also have to kind of get even local folks, I guess, to kind of imagine what they're saying. Can you go on site? So there's a difference between envisioning it with the 3D tabletop type of models or the AR models versus actually being in front of it and doing a 360 tour in full scale. And I think there's a disruption there. I think also the idea is that what they do now to kind of sell buildings is give a discount. So they're leaving a lot of profits on the table by not giving people better visualization tools. The question is, we've developed a tool that allows them to go early on with ViewFrame. It's what I'm going to call an IconR product, which I'll share with you in a minute. The idea is to be able to change the model, the 3D building model, along with the BIM process. So you can hit it in the earliest phase of design and development, make your changes, look at how it sits in the site in terms of height and issues on the horizon, how it fits aesthetically into a particular ecosystem or setting. And I think those are kind of very powerful, easy tools. And one of the things for these larger projects that are 12 years out and they have to sell those properties, they could have 12, 15 buildings like the Hudson Yards project, or they're going to turn the sugar factory in Brooklyn. It's a 5 building project. So people need to engage in it. One of the biggest and more powerful things that we've kind of promoted with this is it's not only your building partners or your government approvals or the financiers, but it's also the community. So the idea is, how do you kind of build in a mobile application ideology to engage the public in that experience? And so those will also have a lot of apartment buildings in it. So you want to, and it's 12 years, 15 years. These are long time projects. So there's a lot of girth for that. So what we've decided is and I'll describe more about the form factor for that tour for consumers in a moment, because we edged in, we realized that the developers are a little reticent to kind of pull the trigger on some of this. So we started to shoot out the gate with the idea that IconR, one of LionShare's products in the AR space, is going to bridge the physical with the virtual and creating a time-elastic lens to reimagine the past as well as to reimagine the future. And that smart city view, that was just shared. I think that the idea of enhancing the present view, whether you're looking at it out from an observatory or whether you're walking down the street and want virtual information, it's all going to happen. The question is, what's the 2020 roadmap? So, okay, quickly, we got immersed into AR with, the genesis was 110 Stories. It was an app done by one of my colleague, Brian August, who created an app that for the 9/11 anniversary to reimagine the Twin Towers in their actual site and setting. And it was a conscious choice not to go overboard on the design of it, but to put a simple silhouette in place because of the sensitivity of the anniversary, as well as sort of aesthetically, you wouldn't want to redesign it in a sense. So we did that with Do Panic. That's how we got involved with them. But what was novel here was the idea of creating it in the form factor of a social photo sharing app where people could actually augment the towers from sort of I guess it was a 20-mile radius, and put them in this place, take a photo, make a comment as to why they thought it was important to them, and share it. And of course, obviously, there's a heat map that would emerge. We recently licensed this to the 9/11 Museum. It will be part of their presentations and part of their archives. And that relationship has led to what I think is probably one of a good example. It's a really good example, I think, of understanding spatial awareness and how users are going to start to engage physically with a space. And I really bounce off the Republic phenomenon. And I think this one actually speaks a little bit to the idea of what happens in the atrium is the two new memorial pools that are there to dedicate to the former Twin Towers have a depth perception. And what you see there is that, there's a sort of an infinity experience. And it's a place, when you get there, the interesting part about those pools is that the perimeter of the pools are actually 10 feet shorter. I guess that's not you don't say it. It's 10 feet smaller than the actual former footprint of the Twin Towers. So that started us thinking about, well, if you were actually standing at the parapet where the names would be, there's actually a tree line that lines around the pools. What would it be? I think President Obama is essentially standing within the former walls of the Twin Towers. And that got us to think about the notion of what we could create, which is called an atrium. And so the idea is to create a sort of another experience, but you're inside it this time. It's sort of a translucent experience that shows the magnitude of the towers. Most people will never have, going forward, obviously, that's a memory. So the question is, how do you bring that back, but in a tasteful way, and in one that's immersive, and that you're participating? So I'm going to show you that we did a little bit of a wireframe when we first were presenting this to the 9/11, and hopefully it'll go all the way. So the idea is that you're standing by the pool, and you're going to look up, and you're going to see the new World Trade Center really through that. This is obviously a virtual reality. And then you're also going to see the South Tower, and what you see over there is the new train station for the PATH train, which is being done by Santiago Calatrava, which is going to be an incredible architectural structure. So once we sort of identified that there's this notion that you could actually be in it, you're standing now by the parapet. You're going to use your mobile device, whether it's an iPhone or an Android-based phone. And the challenge of this from an AR point of view is how do you sight it because it's so high. So we're really going to wrestle with both the marker and being able to project up not having a marker. So that's the talent that's going to have to be pulled to actually execute that. And the other side of it is the coverage. It really has to be hot all around because it is like a football field. And the space of both of the pools is pretty large. And so you have a lot of edges in there in terms of cellular coverage. So we like to layer things up a little bit, and one of the things that we're looking at is, and this is sort of an older version of it, but the thought of leaving messages whereby you could actually tribute, and it could be matched to the actual person that you're seeing on the panel or you're connecting with on the panel, or just a general tribute. But we thought of it in the form of a, sort of like when Lady Diana died. It was like, yes, you'd like to pay your tribute and your homage, but, no clutter, because the space has been beautifully architected. So the idea is to create virtual messages, and you could actually engage in that socially. There's a feed that could be sort of a photo sharing feed, but also you're leaving your mark. You could actually Facebook it and connect it to all your social media. But interestingly enough, the idea is similar, is that you're walking through there and you're going to be able to see everybody's messages who have left them publicly. If you want to leave them privately, you can leave them privately. And this started to open up a whole idea of an AR within an AR. And I think the idea of layering this is going to be exciting. I also think this solves to the Republic problem is that people have to be indoctrinated to have a consumer behavior where they're going to actually know that there's something there. And in this case, I think there's a clear sort of awareness that once you go, you should activate the messaging. And the idea that you're going to be able to take the pictures is exciting. The carry forward for this is also that we're working with the new One World Trade Center Observatory, and the idea is that that's going to be a really interactive space with, but one of the questions that I think most people will have when they go up there was where, in relation to the observatory, were the former towers. And interestingly enough, it's about 50 feet forward. And so what we hope to do is carry the app forward into the observatory so that you could actually see where it was on the 102nd to 104th floor. You're actually going to be looking out and seeing this massive experience of that's where it would have been. And I think answering questions for people with AR is actually fairly engaging also. And of course, you'll be able to take a photo of yourself with that. Just quickly, it goes to the Whimsical too. We're working with the Queen's Museum on doing a World's Fair retrospective. There are just incredible opportunities for doing AR in architectural structures here, and probably the one we like is we're calling it Exhibit. And it was the 1964 World's Fair where IBM had created, believe it or not, inside that big egg, it has IBM all over it, and it was actually designed to look like the IBM Selectric ball that was in the typewriter at the time. So that's crazy. And it was by Area Saarinen, so in Charles Eames. So they had some incredible architects on this. But what was really amazing, and you could look on YouTube for this as well, but there was a hydraulic lift that would lift about 500 people in an audience structure into the actual egg, which is a theater. And in that theater, I don't know how I'm doing on time here, but in that theater, they would see a virtual video exhibit about the future of, actually in that case, it was about artificial intelligence at the time. So what we're going to do is reinvent that by using a digital fabrication structure. That's actually Damon Hernandez is working with us on. And what you're going to do is instead of being hoisted up, you'll be walking up a platform and you'll be able to use AR to visualize and bounce video as if you were in the theater and actually see the old video as well as see their vision for the future. So these types of applications are a bit whimsical. They are a little bit, the idea is to get consumers engaged in the process and show a little bit of the magic. And just another quick aspect of it, it's not architectural, it's not city, it's not urban, it's actually everywhere. And I like the idea of mapping AR to any kind of historical remembrance, including just, kind of projecting experiences. So we're going to lean a little bit into the film end of things because I have a lot of background in that, and we're going to kind of bring back to people's imagination what it would be like to kind of look at an immersive battlefield, and we're doing that with the American Embassy in Luxembourg and with NATO, and we have exciting plans for working with the German embassies as well to kind of reinvent and create tours for that. And actually, in November of this year, I did actually get the opportunity to live in Luxembourg, oddly enough, and it has one of the most historical museums, and so what we do plan to do is, along with this documentary called Ghost Army, which is a fantastic new documentary about the divisions that were the they were their AR specialists in their time. They were people who were the deceivers during World War II. They were a strategic unit that set up blow-up tanks and audio and used the latest technologies to deceive the Germans in terms of the amount of troops on the ground and where they were located. So that documentary just came out, and we're going to be doing a theatrical release, and we will have the ability to see tanks in that facility. So anyway, a lot of fun. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you.